All right, welcome everyone. My name is Coach David here with College Admission Secrets and Ivy League Admission Secrets. Today it is May 30th. It is 6 o'clock, and we will get started today. What we're going to be talking about are the trends that we saw from last year and what are the things that we need to look out for next year and make sure that we're focusing on. Okay. So let's go ahead and get in, right? Now, before we jump in, we've had a lot of new people coming into our coaching programs. We've also had a lot of new members in our Facebook group. So I just want to do a little quick introduction about who we are, what we do, and the successes that we've had. So first off, I'm Coach David, right? And I think Coach Tony was here last week, kind of telling you guys about different Ivy League related things as well. And he is my kind of partner here. Okay. But I'm Coach David. I went to the Claremont colleges. I am a former attorney. I have worked in the undergraduate and law school admissions offices as a reader, and I have 15 years of helping families kind of reach their college goals. I also have 14 years of helping families with their financial aid as well. And so I have had students go to, all the Ivy League schools, Ivy plus schools, top 20, 30, 50 schools, anything you can think of, I've probably sent a student there, and I'm ready to help your students succeed. Okay. Now, my co-host, Coach Tony, you guys probably have seen him around, right? He's been in this space for a long time. He's also been in this space for about 15 years, right? He is the founder of College Admission Secrets. He went to UC Berkeley, even though he was accepted to UCLA and UCI. He got full rides to both of those, but he felt like he needed to get away from home, so he decided to come to Northern California, where I'm currently located now, right? He has since gone back to Southern California, but I think he still has an affinity for Northern California. He founded his own charter school. He is the former high school liaison at Magoosh Test Prep, and he was also one of TikTok's first college admissions partners, right? He's been doing this just as long as me, and together we are the dream team that can help your student get to where they want to get. Now, like I said, we've had students at every Ivy League school, every Ivy Plus school that you can think of, right? Just to show you a little bit about kind of our successes, we have students in at Caltech, into Rice, into Emory, Stanford, Columbia, Cornell, Berkeley, right? And so, we have had a lot of great success, and we want to share that information with you, right? So in this last section, or in this session, right, what are we going to look at? We're going to take a look back at last admission season, see what happened, right? What are some takeaways that we can take from that? What were the trends, right? What are things to watch out for? And also how to focus our energy and get ready for this next season ahead. Now, a lot of our students, especially our junior students right now that are just finishing up the year, they're pushing into application season, right? Now, even if you aren't a junior, if you're a sophomore, freshman, we even have middle school students and even elementary school students in our program because they want to get started early with us so that we can help guide them to on the correct path, right? But whoever this is for, this is general information that will prove very kind of informative. Also, it will allow you to kind of create a game plan for your student. Okay, so let's get into it straight away. And the first point that I want to make is that admission rates are shrinking. They're getting super small, right? A long time ago, when a school had single digit acceptance rates, we were like, oh my God. Now it's single digits, but it's like getting closer to zero, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at kind of like how low they're going, okay? So for this last class, right, these were the numbers at these various schools, right? We have schools that are in the 3%, okay? Now, Stanford, I think they kind of guessed because they actually don't release their statistics, right? But we're guessing it's around 3.9, right? We have a bunch of schools that are in the fours, right? And we have a bunch of schools that are in the 5% range, okay? But the admission rates are dropping each year. A lot of people are kind of like, well, yeah, there's just, there's more competition. Actually, there's multiple reasons why, and let's kind of look at them, okay? So the first reason why acceptance rates are dropping is that there is a significant increase in applications. There are more students than ever that are applying to each of these institutions, right? Students are applying to more colleges. Now, why is this happening? One of the biggest reasons why this is happening is that the test optional policies that took place during COVID, they allow a lot of students that maybe weren't the best test takers to now be a little bit more competitive versus their peers because they don't have their tests, right? And now they're looking at these highly ranked institutions, right? Now, a long time ago, before, what it looked like is you had to have that academic rigor. You also had to have a high test score. But with the test optional policies that came in place with, COVID and the pandemic, a lot of students no longer had to take the tests, right? Now, I'm sure everyone knows one or two people that's like, a really good test taker or a really bad test taker, right? Even if they're very intelligent, right? So a lot of the students that had thought, I can't apply to these schools because they are test required, that's no longer the case. They are applying in greater and greater numbers because these schools went test optional during COVID, okay? And then also, obviously, still till now, right? Now, even though the acceptance rates are dropping and dropping and dropping, let's explore how to increase our chances at these elite institutions. Okay. One of them is early admissions, right? Now, when I say that 99.9% of our students apply early, I am not fibbing, right? All of our students, either whether it's early action or early decision or restrictive early action or single choice early action, are applying early, right? Now, one of the things we talked about was that you do have a statistical advantage, right, when you are applying early, and we'll take a look at some of that data, right? But for those that don't necessarily have the information about what early action is, what early decision is, I'm going to do a quick recap. Okay. So for those that don't have, this is the first time you're hearing these terms, this is what it means, right? Early action. Okay. It means that you apply by November 1st, you get decisions out before January 1st, but you're not bound to go to this school. So it's you turn in your application early, you get an early notification, but you don't necessarily need to go to this school. Early decision is that you apply, basically same timeline, apply by November 1st, decisions are out before January 1st, but as you're applying before November 1st, you as the student, right, and the parent and the school counselor all sign a form saying that if this student gets in, we will go. This is what's known as a binding decision. If you get in, you're going. Okay. And then you have a third option. Okay. And the third option is either called single choice early action or restrictive early action. Okay. They basically both mean the same thing. Again, the timeline is the same. You usually apply by November 1st, decisions out before January 1st. You can apply early, right? But you can only apply, they only allow you to apply early to this one school, right? But same thing, because it's early action, you aren't bound to go to this institution. Some examples of schools that have single choice early action or restrictive early action is like Stanford, right? So if you apply single choice early action, restrictive early action to Stanford, you can only apply early to Stanford. That's all you got. You're not allowed to apply early decision anywhere else, right? You're not allowed to apply early action anywhere else, right? But even if you get in, you are not bound to go to, or you're not forced into going to Stanford right now. I'm sure all of you guys are thinking, oh my gosh, if I got into Stanford, no one need to force me. I would literally voluntarily skip down the road and go, right? And usually that is the case. But again, like I've said over and over, Stanford, that's not the right choice for every student. Harvard, not the right choice for every student. Every student has their own fit. Even within the Ivy Leagues, they're all great institutions, but they have their own flavor. Okay. And so students do need to find what fits them best. Okay. Now, let's look at some of the statistics here, right? Now, there are some schools that do not provide statistics. Like one of them, like I said, Stanford, they don't provide statistics. But if we kind of extrapolate from the information that we're getting from these schools that do, right, we see that there is going to be a huge difference in applying early and applying regular, right? So let's go ahead and look at the statistics here. So for Yale, their early acceptance rate was 9%, okay? Their regular acceptance rate was 2.75%. That means that there is a 300% increased probability of you getting in at Yale early versus regular, okay? Same thing at Harvard, 7.56%, right? Regular, 2.34%, okay? Again, over triple, okay? Brown, 12.98, right? We have, regular at around 3.88. So again, triple, right? And Dartmouth, early acceptance rate, 19.21%, right? Regular is at 4.54%. It's almost 400%, okay? So what do we glean from this? Well, you have a statistical advantage if you apply early, right? We've told people this over and over again. Some people believe us, some people don't believe us, but here are the statistics that do prove it, okay? Now, having said that, this does need to be taken with a grain of salt, and here is that grain of salt. While you do have a statistical greater kind of possibility of getting in from the early pool, the thing that you have to remember is that those students that are applying early, they are committed to these schools, right? All of the Ivy Leagues are either single choice early action, restrictive early action, or early decision. Okay. So that means that they're putting all their eggs in one basket. Okay. So these students are going to be prepared. They're going to be very competitive. So the pool that you're fighting against might be more competitive than the pool you'd be fighting against in the regular decision pool. Okay. So it's something to keep in mind. Okay. Now, there's also another early option that maybe you guys haven't heard of before or don't know. Okay. And so I wanted to kind of bring it up for you guys so that you guys also are able to hear about it. And it's called Early Decision 2. Okay. So Early Decision 2, it's a program for basically giving kids another chance at early decision. So Early Decision 1, you turn in your applications by November 1st, right? You get a decision out by, mid to late December, January 1st, right? Early Decision 2 is usually due somewhere between January 1st and January 15th, right? So students can benefit from this if they didn't apply early the first round, right? Or if they didn't, get into the school of their choice for ED1, right? So ED2, it also allows for other things too. You can add in more grades, right? Because your senior year first semester will be done. You can add additional test scores. There's other things that you can do to increase your chances of getting in, right? But again, you need to remember deadlines. Okay. Early decision 1 has deadlines. Early decision 2 has deadlines. You need to make sure that you're staying on top of your deadlines. But this is another option, right? It's also a good option for schools as well. So let's say that they didn't find a lot of qualified candidates in early decision 1. That means that, like let's say a student like a school like Brown. Brown is a school that selects almost 50% of its freshman class from early decision. Okay. Now, let's say that they didn't even get close to filling up half of their freshman class from early decision 1, right? If I don't think they have early decision 2 this year, but if they did, right, early decision 2 is a way for the college to kind of get some more qualified students in and also kind of make sure that they have a certain number in their freshman class. Okay. So it's something to consider, right? Your strategy should be also thinking about early decision 1, early decision 2. Okay. All right, and let's go ahead just real quickly. There's some questions here, and then we'll go into a word from our sponsor, right? But we have a question here and it says, are these early acceptance rates with the early decision 2, meaning students are committed? So every school is different. So Yale is different, Brown is different, Harvard is different in what they offer for early. So they might have early action, like restrictive early action, they might have early decision, but whatever their early policy is, that's what their acceptance rate was. And as far as Stanford, it says, do they have ED2? They actually don't. Stanford is a school that has single choice early action, so they don't have early decision at all. Okay. Now, a real quick word from our sponsor here, right? Now, there are two companies that I want to, kind of explore here, right? The first one is College Admission Secrets, right? Our umbrella company. We want to make sure that we are telling our families about the college application intensive. It is this summer. It's a weekend, 2-day event where we help your student complete their applications. Now, it's not just happening within those 2 days. There's a bunch of homework that needs to get done and that we provide for your student so that they can come to the 2-day event and get their essays done. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more about our college application intensive, text weekend to 415-938-8721. About half of our dates are sold out already, right? But we still have some spaces available in like San Jose. I think we have some spaces available at UC Berkeley. We have some spaces available in San Diego, and then also Ontario and Long Beach, I think. Right. So we're kind of all over California this year. So again, if you are interested, please text weekend to 415-938-8721. Okay. And our other group is Financial Aid Secrets. Now, I know that we talk about, going to college, right? A lot here, going to the Ivy League schools, but a lot of people don't talk about the cost. right? So the cost to go to like an elite private school or an Ivy League school is anywhere between $85,000 and $95,000 a year now, right? So this is what I tell my families. Do you want to pay full price? Do you want to pay $90,000 a year? Don't sign up for a consultation, right? If you think you make too much, you need to sign up for a consultation, right? So again, both of these, obviously one text, right? I will have a link for financial aid consultations as well in the chat below, right? Or at the end of the end of the webinar, okay? But let's kind of go and talk a little bit more about testing trends, okay? Because this has been probably a huge thing on everyone's radar because things are changing very rapidly. But the test policies are changing. Every day we're seeing more and more colleges join the test required ranks, right? So more recently, like Caltech said, hey, we're going back, test required. UT Austin is now test required, right? And a bunch of these other schools, Harvard, MIT, Yale, Brown, Dartmouth, Georgetown, have been test required for a little bit, okay? But the new additions to this list that are kind of concern in our Ivy League and Ivy Plus kind of admission secrets here is Caltech and UT Austin, right? Caltech in April, they were test option or they were test blind. In May, they were test required. They took a huge shift. It wasn't even from test blind to test optional. It was from test blind to test required. Okay. So what do we think is going to happen? Most likely, right? The college admissions landscape is going to change again, right? Obviously, during the pandemic, it changed drastically. And then each year after that, it's been kind of like, okay, so what's happening next? What's happening next, right? So we have to make sure that we're staying on top of those things, right? We don't know which schools are going to change next, right? Another thing that you have to kind of consider and why it's important is you also have to kind of figure out if your school is test required, what is the score that I'm shooting for, right? You want to make sure that you are preparing in a way that will get you to your goal score, but you also want to make sure that you're putting your time and effort in the right place to get to the score that you want. Okay. Now, the one thing I say across the board, if it's the SAT, you need to be taking it in the digital format. If it's the ACT is still paper and pencil, so you can do a paper and pencil. But for the SAT, there is no kind of reason why you should be taking old tests, why you should be taking taking the test paper and pencil when you're practicing. You need to be practicing under test conditions. Okay. All right. Now, the most important part, how do we break through? How do we break through this super kind of like super high kind of like barrier to entering these schools, right? And I'm going to kind of go through them step by step here. Okay. So these are the 5 things that I've seen and that I have kind of pulled out and taken away from everything I've seen over this past year to tell you here are the things that you should be focusing on. Okay. The first thing is academic excellence. Okay. So what do I mean by that? It means rigor, right? Rigor is something that we push very hard in our coaching program, right? We have said this so many times, literally like as soon as I type R in any of my programs, it types in rigor, right? It's like it auto corrects it to rigor. Okay. So as stated multiple times, we want students to be pushing, right? Colleges see the academic rigor as a marker for student success at their institution. And so basically, what does that mean? Whenever given the choice, and if the student is able, we want to take the honors AP IB version. Okay. So just keep that in mind. All right. The other part is extracurricular activities. Okay. So in your activities, colleges are looking for more than just involvement, right? I've had a lot of consultations with families. I've talked to a lot of students and they're like, oh yeah, well, I created this group. And I was like, all right, so what have you done since you created it 5 years ago? And they're like, oh, we have weekly meetings. And I'm like, what do you do during those weekly meetings? It's like, oh, well, we get together and talk to each other. And I'm like, so what has happened? Nothing has really happened. Colleges are looking for students that are engaged and are making strides to grow and develop their groups, right? Just starting something isn't enough anymore, right? Just kind of attending something is not enough anymore. The words you need to be thinking about are growth and development, right? How are students fostering growth, right? And this is the one piece I want to say. Do not focus on the hours, right? The example I always give is this, right? And I give a very drastic example because that's the only way I feel like people understand it. So let's say that you're part of an activity and like you guys have like weekly meetings and you guys meet for 20 hours a week. So over the course of a year, you guys meet for 1,000 hours. Okay. But what do you guys do there? You guys sit there and watch movies and you don't do anything with that, right? You literally just watch movies together and then go home. Okay. But you spent 1,000 hours on it, right? Now, let's say that you're spending 10 minutes a year, like 10 minutes a year, not a week, 10 minutes a year, but you're solving like you're finding the cure for cancer, right? The impact is so large that they don't really care anymore about how much time you're spending on it, right? Now, the other activity that you're doing that's 1,000 hours, well, you probably need to do that even more to show them that you are actually kind of creating an impact because again, there isn't much societal impact that's happening. But curing cancer, right? Even if it's 1 hour every 5 years, right? That's gonna have that societal impact. So you want to just focus. You don't just want to focus on increasing the number of hours. Also focus on the impact. Okay. All right. The other thing that we have told you guys over and over again is about compelling essays. Okay. Now, the essays are a window into who the student is, right? What makes them tick? What are they passionate about? Where are their intellectual curiosities, right? What are their quirks, right? And so in the last decade or so, the essays have become more important. Okay. So what do we have to do here? We have to focus on creating a compelling story about the student. Again, something that we say to our students, and a lot of them, sometimes they even are like, what do you mean? Right? Is that I actually don't care what you've done. Okay. It's about what you've done and how that has changed you, right? And that why it's important to you, why you continue to do it, that is the part that is more important. Okay. Um, I also phrase it this way. When I'm talking to students and we're trying to brainstorm, I say, what are the things that without a full understanding of, we would not understand who you are as a person? Those are the pieces that colleges want to know about. It's not about how many awards you won at hackathon. It's not about how many hours you have for volunteering, right? That stuff, that's all in your activity section. You don't need to go over that again. What you do need to tell them is, this is who I am as a person, right? Here's my character. Here's my personality. This is who I am, right? That's what needs to be coming through, right? So here, essays should be about personal experiences, not achievements, right? Now, there are certain things that are usually overdone, right? And so the one thing that I tell students over and over, I literally have students every year come and say, hey, you know that Costco essay? Maybe I can do something like that. And I'm like, that's not your story, right? That's that kid's story. And if you write it, literally every admissions officer in the world has read that. So they're going to know that you're copying that format, right? So you have to create a story that is all your own. Okay. Finally, or not finally, but second to last is recommendations, right? Now, I like to call these slop, right? Now, the average teacher at the average school writes slop, right? And again, I'm not putting anyone down, right? But what slop means to me is a standard letter of praise, right? So like, when you go and you're switching jobs and you ask your boss for a letter of recommendation and they literally write 4 lines and say, oh, David is a good worker. David comes to work on time. David is a smart cookie, right? That doesn't really do anything for the colleges, right? Now, while slop's not going to hurt your application, it's not going to add any benefit. Okay. So you need to pick the teachers that know you best and that are most invested in your success, right? So it's the ones that know you best and like you best. Okay. Now I put a little comment down here. It's like, which teachers should I ask? Right. So obviously that's the first criteria. Who knows you best? Who likes you best? But in a perfect world, it would also be broken up into one STEM teacher and one humanities social science teacher. Okay, so that's what we would love to see, right? Now, are there schools that allow more recommendations? Yes, but at the very least, you should have 2, right? Now, if they give you 5 slots to send in letters of recommendation, I actually don't suggest turning in all 5. Okay, pick 2 or 3 teachers that that are, the ones you want to ask them, turn in those 3, be done with it. Okay, you don't need to fill it up in order to get in. Okay. And the final part is testing. Okay. So, like I said, a lot of the Ivy Plus schools are returning to test required. So, for our class of 2025, class of 2026, class of 2027, you need to be ready to take the test. Okay. So, make sure to understand your situation, prepare at the right time, and put in the correct amount of time and effort. Right. Another question that I always get is like, which one is better, SAT or ACT? Colleges don't care which one it is. They just want to see one. Okay, so I have students come in and say, yeah, I'm going to take the ACT because it has a science section. So, and I'm a STEM major, and so colleges will like that more. That's actually not the case. You should just take whichever one is more comfortable for you, right? Now, that the tests are very different. The SAT, it's more about how good are you at taking a test, finding tricks. The ACT is more about, do you know the concept or not, right? Now, the ACT is a lot faster of a test. There's more questions, less time. The SAT, it's a little slower, but trickier, right? So there's less questions and more time, right? But it all depends on what you feel comfortable with. If you're still unsure about exactly which test you want to take, go ahead, find like a tutoring center where you can go take a diagnostic SAT, right, and a diagnostic ACT. Again, when you're taking the diagnostics, you need to be doing it under test conditions. So SAT, digital, ACT, paper, pencil is fine. Okay. Now, I do see a bunch of questions and we're going to get to them in a little bit, but I did want to make sure that I invited everyone to work with us. Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit about what our coaching program looks like. And then hopefully, if you want to sign up and have a conversation with us, you can do that. Okay. So our coaching program, what does it look like? We have college and career support. So your college selections, right? Exploring different colleges, right? Major strategy. We'll also help you with your academics, selecting your classes, dual enrollment or outside courses, right? Activities. We're going to help you with your personal project, help you find research programs, internships, and then make sure that you are bolstering your activities. And then finally, on your applications, unlimited application support, right? UC applications, CSU, private school, other state schools, right? We will make sure to do that. And also your college app intensive is included. Okay. So we have unlimited support as well, right? You'll meet with one of our coaches to do your roadmap call. You'll have weekly and monthly check-ins, right? We have daily live, office hours, right? And you have lifetime access until you graduate from high school. We don't nickel and dime. We don't do it by year. Whether you join us in first grade or you join us in 11th grade, the price is exactly the same. So for families with younger students, it makes more sense to get help starting early because the price is going to be the same throughout, right? Now, the one thing I will say is this, literally tomorrow, that's the last day that, we are accepting seniors, right? We want to be able to focus on the seniors that we have, so we're not going to be accepting seniors after tomorrow. So don't lose your chance to work with us. Now, just because of how the kind of dates were, we will be accepting students that have a consultation that is booked today or tomorrow. So the one thing that I wanted to do is make sure that you guys do have those links. Okay, so I decided to get a little bit techie. I made some QR codes. If anything is something that you're going to take a picture of or take a screenshot of, this is what you should take a screenshot of. On the left, you'll find the link to go ahead and sign up for a assessment call with our team. Okay. On the right side, if you want to have a consultation about financial aid, you can find that there. Now, for those that are a little bit less tech savvy, right? I'm also putting the links in the chat as well. So the first link I'm putting in is for the assessment. The second link I'm putting in is for the financial aid consultation. All of our consultations are free. We never charge you anything. And for the assessment for our coaching program, you can't even buy anything on the first call. We're just going to give you some advice. We're going to ask you what your kind of pain points are, right? Now for financial aid, I'll tell you about the program, right? If I feel like it's the right fit. And if you feel like it's the right fit, I'll send you more information so you can sign up. Okay. We don't pressure people into buying, right? It is just get your information and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay. All right. So once again, if you do want to sign up for the college application intensive or you want to get more information about it, go ahead and text weekend to 415-938-8721. The links to sign up, again, here, right? The QR codes, right? And then also I put them in the chat as well. So I'm just going to leave these up right now so that people can take pictures, whatever they need to do for this, for the links. And then I will kind of move on to Q&A. I do see a bunch of questions. So if you guys do have questions you want to ask me, make sure to put them in the chat or in the Q&A and I will make sure to answer them. So let's go ahead and start here. Okay, so we have a question here and it says, do you have less chance for scholarships during early action or early decision? No, that's not the case. Your financial aid is going to be based on your family situation. So whether you apply early action, early decision, or regular decision, you're going to get the same package, right? Now, I think a lot of people think that, oh, because like we're committing and we're early, especially for early decision, that they're going to give us less money because they know we have to come, right? Now, I see where it comes from, right? I see why you would think that, but that's not what happens, right? So if your family qualifies for aid, you will get it, right? And if we can if we can help you, right, at Financial Aid Secrets, if we can help you qualify for aid, we'll let you know, right? So don't be scared that if you apply early that you're not going to get any aid. That is not the case. We have another question here. The link says page not found. Uh-oh. Which one? Give me a second. Let me try them. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second. Let me find that link for you. That was my mistake. Let me go ahead and put the new one in. Looks like they changed it on me without telling me. So give me 1 second. Okay. Let us try this one. So that is for the this link that I just sent in. That one is for the the kind of assessment with our team. And then this one here is for the financial aid consultation. So hopefully that works there. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the questions here, right? So yes, so for scholarships, don't worry about it. You're gonna get what you get, right? We have another question here about the SAT. If we got a 1500 plus score on a previous test format, that's fine, right? So if you took it kind of like last fall, you might have still taken the paper pencil, right? Now, depending on kind of like what you're using it for, you might want to take it again. You might just use that score that you have, okay? So it all depends on when you're what class of what are you, right? So if you're a class of like 2027, or class of 2030, and you took the SAT, then you might need to retake it again, especially if you are going to be vying for like a national merit spot. Okay, but those are all very specific things. But generally speaking, if you have a kind of 1500 plus score in a previous test format, you should be fine. Okay. We have another question here, and it says, but what if your passion activity is something that tells the story of who you are as a person? It possibly can, right? A lot of our students, and one of the things that we actually do is work on a personal project that is geared towards what the students' interests are. If that's the case, then yeah, your story might be about your personal project, but it's not about what you did in your personal project. It's okay, well, here's a personal project I did. This is why it was important to me. Okay, so I think a lot of people mistakenly think that talking about something that they're passionate about and what you did in it shows them the passion. It doesn't. It just tells them what you did, right? It doesn't tell them why you did it, right? So the question that I want you to be thinking when you're writing your activities down, when you're writing your essays, when you're doing anything that's related to the application, is you need to ask yourself why, right? Not what, right? It's not what you did, it's why you did it. Okay, and that's the most important part. Okay. And then we have another question here that's asking about super scoring. So again, I think I talked about super scoring a long time ago, but I will kind of go over it very quickly right now. Super scoring is where you have a situation where you are taking like the math section and the reading writing section from two different SATs and then combining them to give yourself a higher score, right? Now, let me just make this very simple. Let's say we got 800 on math, 500 on reading and writing on one test. On another test, we got 800 on reading and writing and 500 on math, right? Now, each of your scores for one sitting is 1300 for each score, right? Now, if you super scored it, you would have a 1600 because there was one time where you got a 800 on math, one time where you got an 800 on reading and writing. Now, when the colleges look at it, are they only going to see those two scores? No. Unfortunately, you cannot cherry pick those scores and send them off. When you send your scores to get super scored, you will send the whole test where you got 800 on math and 500 on reading, and also the test that you got for 800 on reading and writing, and then 500 on math. So you will send both of those full scores. The school will then obviously super score it. Now, here's the thing. Do you want to show them a 500 on your math section? Do you want to show them the 500 that you got on your reading writing section? So for some students, depending on where they're applying, you have to be careful about deciding whether to super score or not, right? And also depending on your major, all these other factors, there are a lot of things you have to decide on when you're turning in your SAT score. But does super scoring work, technically speaking? Yeah, of course, right? And if the kind of like single sitting scores and the kind of super score don't really fluctuate a lot, that's obviously the best situation. Let's say you got, 780 on reading writing and then 790 on math, right? And then on another test you got 800 on math and then 780 on reading and writing. So there was only kind of like an extra 10 points you got, but the scores that you had got in each sitting were roughly the same, right? That's kind of the best situation that you want to be in, right? Because your overall score will go up and your one-time sitting scores were roughly the same. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions in the chat here. Again, if you do have other questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A. And it says, is research at state schools valuable, or does it look better to do those at Ivy programs? So I think you're talking about like research programs or like summer programs at state schools versus Ivy League schools. To be honest, there are a lot of state school programs that are better than the Ivy League ones, right? So it really depends on which program, right? There are some programs that are very good at the Ivy Leagues too, right? So for instance, like there is a program at Brown called Bell at Brown, which is about environmental leadership. So if your students interested in the environment or leadership or a mixture of those both, that is a kind of it's a very like well-known and well-regarded program, right? But there's also programs like in California at the UC schools called Cosmos, right? Those are also better than probably I'd say like 50 or 60% of the private school or elite school programs, right? So it depends on what program. It doesn't matter which school it's at. Okay. All right. We have another question here. Are there some courses more of a pay to play scenario? So I don't think it should be a pay to play scenario. I think I've used that term before, pay to play. But realistically, to kind of do anything, most of the times there is something that you do need to pay, right? But the question becomes, is it worth paying for that program or not, right? So let's say that there's a program and they help you take summer classes at Harvard, right? Right? But it's like it costs $5,000. Well, let me tell you just right off the bat, I wouldn't pay that, right? Because I can go to my local community college and take classes for free during the summer instead of paying $5,000 plus rent for all the time that I'm going to be at Harvard, right? So those sorts of things are kind of more pay to play. But here is how I differentiate it. The question is, what are you doing, right? So if you're just paying a bunch of money and like going to like a cool school and like looking around and those sorts of things, those are programs that you do not need. If you're going to a program where you're going to be hands-on, you're going to be researching with a professor, you're going to be, taking part in like a bunch of different lectures and presenting your research findings and doing all these things, then it might be worth it, right? But the kind of worth it and the qualitative things, that is different for every family. But if you're part of our coaching program, reach out to us, like send us a link so we can take a look at what you'll be doing. Then we can answer like, is this worth us doing or not, right? If it is, we'll tell you what our opinion is. If we think that it's just a money grab, then I will tell you that as well. We're very honest about how we feel. Okay. All right. We have additional questions here, and it says, does the National Merit Scholarship look at only PSAT or SAT too? So this is a little known fact, but let's say you get a perfect score on the PSAT. All right. So then you're like a National Merit Scholarship, like semifinalist, finalist, this yada, 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 right? You must take a qualifying test within a 2-year plus or minus of your PSAT to confirm your score, right? So you need to have an SAT score that is within a certain percentage or certain kind of like variation of your score to show that what you actually did on your PSAT is is your actual kind of like ability level. Okay. So it's something to think about there, right? But you have to take it, I think it's within 2 years plus or minus of the PSAT date, right? So it would be like ninth grade. So basically ninth to 12th grade, like you would have to do it. You would have to take the SAT in that time to confirm your PSAT score. Okay. We have another question here. It says, does college super score between paper and digital or only one format of the test? I'm not sure because this is the first year that we have the digital. So I'm sure the colleges will tell us. But my thought process is that they probably won't, right? So it's either going to be one or the other because the tests are so different. And obviously with the adaptive testing and all these other things, the test has changed too much, right? So I'm pretty sure that it will be only paper pencil and only digital. Okay. But again, that is my prediction. I can't say for 100% yet. Okay, sorry, let me take a drink of water. Okay, you have another question here, and it says, so you would have to take the SAT to confirm, and therefore the choice is made between the SAT, ACT, correct? I see what you're saying. So if you're going to take the PSAT and you did really well, you would have to confirm with the SAT. You wouldn't be able to confirm with the ACT. Now, if you wanted to, like, but again, if you did really well on the PSAT, then that seems like that formatting is working for you. So then taking the SAT would make sense, right? But if you find that the SAT is not working out for you and like you're not going to be confirming your score, then you can switch to the ACT. But that's a very specific situation. But I have had students take both for that particular reason. But it really depends on what your student feels most comfortable with. Okay. Oops, sorry, I didn't even realize I went over time, right? But I guess we'll kind of close it down. Let me just go ahead and share my screen just one last time so that we can, it's not working right now. But again, if you do want to kind of, talk to us and kind of see what's going on with our college application intensive, the phone number again is 415, can't remember it. I think it's 938-8721. But let me go look it up real quick, right? It is, yes, 415-938-8721. That is where you're going to reach out to us to get more information about the college application intensive, right? And if you have any questions about financial aid, about our coaching programs, go ahead and book those links as well. You can book a free assessment with our team. The link is in the chat. Our financial aid consultation link is also in the chat as well. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties today. We'll be back again next week. If you guys do have questions beforehand, please go ahead and reach out to us. And again, we are here to help you guys answer questions. So we will also be posting in our Facebook group about the replay. So if you came a little late or you didn't really hear exactly what I was saying, we will have a replay link that you can ask for, and then we will go ahead and send that over to you as soon as it is ready. Okay. Thank you guys so much for your time. We'll be back here again next week, Thursday at 6 o'clock. And I hope to see and talk to more of you guys soon. Okay. All right. Everyone have a great night, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.